So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen. I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. So, listen, headed back out to Egypt, y'all. It's a lot more we need to learn, a lot more history, a lot more information, a lot more discoveries that need to take place out in Egypt. So that's what we're heading to check out today. This is what a man discovered in Egypt shocked the world. All right, so probably get into some tombs, some stuff we find amongst the tombs, who knows? But I'm here for it, all right? So if you're new to the channel, man, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy this type of content, information, hit that like button. You know what I mean? If you're learning something, even if it's a little bit like myself, you're learning some things, hit that like button. Join the fam, all right? And we're gonna get right to it. Here we go. Uh-oh. I thought we was gonna get right to it.
Egypt is an incredible place, literally drowning in eons of history.
Facts. Wow.
And as a result of that, it's swimming in all manner of curious oddities just waiting to be stumbled upon and discovered. These are the strangest things discovered in Egypt. Number 20. The Coffins of SAQQARA. Just outside the city of Cairo, there's a massive necropolis that, ever since its discovery, has been revealing very mysterious secrets kinda non-stop. A necropolis is basically a city of the dead, as in an entire city built to bury people in it.
As soon as I see that happen, the first thing I'll be wanting to scream out is, all right, as soon as they open a tomb, everybody who's involved in that, we need to keep a track of them. Because you know they're always saying what you release from a tomb, it normally affects the people who open it. And I just want to see what's going on in their life. Do they come up with sudden illnesses or unexpected deaths happen and stuff like that? I want to know.
And in 2020, the biggest discovery so far was revealed. An Egyptian archaeological mission uncovered 100 perfectly preserved anthropoid ancient Egyptian coffins at the site. The coffins were still completely sealed, and they are made out of wood. They also feature extremely intricate painted designs, and they are all intact. Some of the coffins even contain mummies inside, and some others have statues of the Saqqara goddess Ptah with golden funerary masks. The coffins were buried on top of each other in a burial shaft that's about 12 meters deep, and the archaeologists believe it was dug more than 2,500 years ago, which makes it all the more incredible that the coffins are still in mint condition.
You brought me back to action. Yes, sir.
All the artifacts are going to be moved to several different museums. The Cairo Museum in Tahrir Square, the GEM, the NMEC, and the Capitals Museum in the new administrative capital. So you know where to go if you want to check these beauties out. Like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Now, it's time for the odd topic. When a tourist named Scott found this thing during a visit to Egypt, he had no idea what it was. Of course he didn't, he's no expert. But after getting it into the hands of someone who was, they were able to confirm that this peculiar trinket was prehistoric in nature and could be millions of years old. Looking at it, you're probably thinking, no, that can't be the case. The outer shell looks way too modern. That actually confused the expert as well. It seems the trinket had gone under some kind of restoration work in the early 1900s, and that's where the exterior comes from. A truly shocking find, to be sure. What this man discovered in Egypt shocked the world. As always, comment down below with the hashtag OddTopic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen.
I want to know how much it was worth, though. That talk to me monetarily. How much was it worth?
With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 19. Ancient Egyptian ship discovered buried in an underwater city. A group of divers found the remains of a military vessel in the sunken city of Thonis Heraklion in the Bay of Abu Qir in Egypt. Experts have determined that the ship dates from the 2nd century BCE. They believe that the vessel was moored right beside the Temple of Amun, but when that building collapsed, the ship succumbed under the weight of the temple and sunk. The ship, which is 80 feet long, was actually found under 16 feet of hard clay. It seems that the vessel has both ancient Egyptian and Greek design techniques, but it was most certainly made in Egypt because they used partially reused wood to make it. It also has a flat bottom and keel, which would have allowed it to navigate the River Nile and its delta, right where it meets the Mediterranean Sea. Actually, Thonis Heraklion was once Egypt's greatest Mediterranean port before Alexander the Great founded Alexandria around 331 BC, which is about 14 miles to the west. This amazing discovery gives us more information about the presence of Greek merchants that actually lived in this city. Sadly, at the end of the 2nd century BC, an extremely severe flood caused the main island that the city was built on to succumb. The hard clay turned rapidly into a liquid and the buildings collapsed into the water, and that is why this once magnificent and vibrant port is today completely underwater. Number 18.
That just goes to show you, man, it's a lot of history that can provide us answers to things going on back then, or catastrophic events that took place, or missing people. A lot of that stuff is just sitting up under the ocean, man. And we can get to it when we get to it, or we develop something to help us get to it faster, or take pictures of it or whatever. But it's just sitting there. A lot of that history is in the ocean, man.
Lost Golden City. Famous Egyptologist Zahi Hawass has announced recently the amazing discovery of an entire city that was lost to the capricious sands of Egypt near Luxor. The Lost Golden City is deemed the most important archaeological discovery since the finding of Tutankhamun's tomb. The city is known as Aten, and the evacuation started in September 2020. The city was raised during the reign of one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs of all times, Amenhotep III. He ruled ancient Egypt from 1391 to 1353 BC. After his death, Aten continued to be used and inhabited by pharaohs I.e. and Tutankhamun. This discovery is incredible for many reasons. The most significant is that it'll give a perfectly preserved glimpse into the life of ancient Egyptians at the time when the empire was at its wealthiest. Archaeologists have been wondering and speculating these same questions for a long time, and now they will finally find all the answers they've been seeking. Lots of precious artifacts were found and continue to be unearthed at the site, such as jewelry, colored pottery, scarab beetles, and mud bricks featuring the seals of Amenhotep III. The Lost Golden City, which is located some 300 miles south of the capital, Cairo, is in perfect condition, with entire walls and with rooms filled with tools of everyday life. They also found several areas or neighborhoods, including a bakery, an administrative district, and a residential area. Number 17. The Stone of APRIES. This beautiful and intricately carved stone was not discovered by any Egyptologist or archaeologist. No, it was actually found by a farmer when he was preparing his land for crop planting. Experts believe that the stone was installed by the pharaoh APRIES some 2,600 years ago, hence its name. The stone is also known as stele or stela, and it measures 91 inches long and 41 inches wide. Carved into it, you can see a winged sun disk and Egyptian hieroglyphs that represent APRIES, or the sun god Ra, enclosed in an oval called a cartouche. It also features 15 lines of hieroglyphs that experts are working hard to translate. These kinds of stones were used all over the ancient world as tombstones, and sometimes also as a symbol of commemoration or demarcation, kind of like our modern day statues and tombstones. Mostafa Waziri, the Secretary General of Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, has reported that the stone could probably be part of a military campaign that Pharaoh APRIES was waging east of Egypt. APRIES reigned during the 26th dynasty of Egypt when the empire was independent. Number 16.
You ever think that they would like put stuff purposely in the ground? Not saying like the cities and stuff like that. No, I think that's impossible. But stuff like the stones and different things like that, kind of like a time capsule, as they're like, you know what I mean, for the future generations to come to see what type of things they did, and that could be what those carvings and those, you know, the things that was on that stone. That could be what they're trying to say, what they were able to accomplish, what they were able to do, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Just a thought, not necessarily what that has to be, but that was something that popped in my mind. What if that was their time capsule to us? Could have been.
15. Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza needs no introduction.
At all.
It may very well be one of the most mysterious and visited historical sites in the whole world, but not a lot of people actually know why they built it. Archaeologists and Egyptologists believe that the pyramid was built during the 26th century BC, more precisely under the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, also known as Cheops. He ruled the empire from 2589 BC to 2566 BC, and apparently he built the magnificent pyramid as a tomb for himself and his wife, Queen Henutsen. The pyramid is 460 feet tall, but recently, with the help of state-of-the-art scanning technology, they have found an empty space that could be at least 100 feet long. As you can see, something that was built some 4,500 years ago can still surprise us today. It's also quite impressive that they were able to build something so grand all those centuries ago, especially considering it's still in pretty good shape. The secret chamber within the pyramid could very well be another burial site, but the curious fact about it is that it's located slightly above the king's chamber. Now, who could have been more important than the king himself? Egyptologists are completely baffled. They simply can't come up with any theories that could make sense with what we know about the society of ancient Egypt. Number 15. The unfinished obelisk in Aswan. This gigantic monolith was never really finished, so it now lays like a sleepy giant in a bed of granite forever. The unfinished obelisk of Aswan is a perfectly preserved window into the building methods that ancient Egyptians used to make monolithic monuments. And this one, if it would have been finished and erected, would have certainly been one of the most imposing and biggest obelisks in the whole world at the time. The plan was for it to measure 137 feet if completed, and it's estimated to weigh around 1,200 tons. And did you know that it wasn't a male pharaoh that commissioned it, but a female pharaoh called Hatshepsut that reigned during the 18th dynasty more than 3,500 years ago? The ancient Egyptians called these monuments Takinu, and they are four-sided, tapered monoliths. They were typically placed at the entrance of temples, and today they represent the hallmark of ancient Egyptians' superior engineering abilities. But then, if they were so good at making obelisks, how come they didn't finish this one? Well, it wasn't that it was too big for them, or too heavy. The reason why the obelisk of Aswan was never completed is because when they were freeing it from its bedrock, a huge crack appeared, sadly causing it to lay abandoned ever since. Number 14.
Dang.
The KHUFU solar ship. This is the oldest intact ship ever discovered in history. It was originally built for Pharaoh Khufu, hence its name, that reigned during the 4th dynasty some 2,500 years ago. But what is a solar ship exactly? Although they are called ships and boats, they weren't really meant to go on the water. Although some of them have been found with evidence of being in the water, the vast majority were not. Solar boats are ritual vessels to carry the resurrected king with the sun god Ra across the heavens. Archaeologists believe that they were basically funerary barges. The one made for Pharaoh Khufu was found in one of 5 pits discovered near the Great Pyramid of Khufu. They actually found it scattered in the sand in 1,200 separated pieces of cedar wood, and it took them a lot of hard work and 14 long years to reassemble the ship. By analyzing smaller ships on the tomb and studying boat-making techniques in the area, Chief Egyptian Restorer Ahmed Youssef Mustafa believes that the Khufu ship was originally held together by sycamore pegs and half-a-grass ropes. It is 143 feet long and 19.5 feet wide in all its glory. Number 13.
Damn.
Deir el Medina's Tomb Builders. Have you ever wondered where the hundreds of people involved with the building of the Valley of the Kings actually lived? Oh, they were housed in Deir el Medina, and contrary to popular belief, they were absolutely not slaves. They were voluntary workers employed by the government, and they had a salary.
We still go back and forth with that. Because everything now that they're saying is volunteer. When we were coming up, they made it seem like slaves did it. So I'm confused. That's why I listen and I take a mental note of when they give that information about who helped build and were they slaves or were they not? Were they volunteers? And more so the stuff I'm hearing today says volunteers, but I'm still interested to know, to see See.
They built a small city about 2 miles away from Luxor for the builders and also for their families. This city was originally called the Place of the Truth, and it was founded around 1500 BC. It was inhabited for some 400 years until the internment in the Valley of the Kings ended. At its utmost peak, the city had about 105 stone houses, and some of the workers were even literate, as papyrus and letters written on ostraca have been found on the site. They also had a weekend, just like us. Their schedule consisted of 8 full days of work, followed by 2 days off. They worked very hard, that is for sure. A funny fact is that the builders got additional days off when they were ill and also to attend festivals and religious events, but also when they were very drunk. Number 12. The Silver Pharaoh. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs were buried with lots of valuable artifacts, usually made out of gold. They chose gold in particular because it has the color of the sun, which represents their most important god, Ra. Using gold in the tomb ensured that their king would receive the gift of eternal life. That's why most Egyptian death masks were golden, because just like the sun that reappears every morning after having gone to the underworld the evening before, gold gave the kings the power to return to life. Pharaoh Susenes I reigned from 1036 to 989 BCE during the 21st dynasty. He was a direct descendant of famous pharaoh Ramesses I. His death mask may very well be the single most recognizable artifact from ancient Egypt. When you think of a pharaoh's tomb, you think of this mask. But his sarcophagus, on the other hand, was made out of pure and solid silver. This metal represented the moon. Pharaoh Susenes was a very obscure ruler that had the misfortune of becoming king during a very difficult time for Egypt, as the kingdom was fractured and divided between the rival rulers of North and South. But unfortunately, because their tombs were full of precious materials, there were a lot of robberies throughout history, and a lot has been lost. Number 11.
Of course, bro. You know the first ones who stumbled upon the tombs. Bro, they lined their pockets. You know they did. You know it. So what we're getting now is the secondhand stuff that nobody wanted, and we're having to use that to kind of figure out what took place in history. But yeah, you know, first chance, man. Please, they were taking all them jewels.
Abu Simbel Temples. The Abu Simbel temples are located south of Aswan on the shore of Lake Nasser. They were originally built by the greatest of all Egyptian pharaohs, Ramesses II. They are breathtakingly imposing and beautiful. This site is the most famous one in Egypt after the Great Pyramid of Giza. They were meant to show the power of Egypt's rulers to everyone that had the fortune of seeing them. The entrance of the temples is literally carved into the stone of the mountain, and the 4 pharaohs that guard the gate are the largest sculptures to have survived from the ancient.
That's crazy. Let's just take that in. You know how many pictures? I'd have probably like filled up my iPhone storage, snapping so many pictures right in front of here, fam. That's just like history at its finest right there. Look at that, bro. That's insane.
Pharaonic era.
That's insane.
The twin temples were built to serve as a lasting monument to Ramesses.
Look at that, man. Bro, I gotta go just be amongst that history.
II and his wife, Queen Nefertiti, commemorating their victory at the Battle of Kadesh. Everyone's heard of Queen Nefertiti. She was deemed to be the most beautiful woman to have ever walked this earth. The amazing temples were rediscovered by Swiss explorer John Louis Burckhardt in 1813, right in the middle of the craze for Egyptology. It had been completely forgotten, and sand had covered everything except the top of the heads of the 4 statues in the entrance. Number 10. The Valley of the Golden Mummies. This massive necropolis was discovered in 1996 by worldly famous Egyptian archaeologist and head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Mr. Zahi Hawass. The Valley of the Golden Mummies dates back to the Roman era, and it was built 6 kilometers southwest of Ba-Titi, which is the largest city on the Baharea Oasis. This place was the most important burial site for the Romans in the entirety of the Kingdom of Egypt, which means it is one of the most important discoveries ever made there. are. The surface area of the valley is of about 36 square meters, and it contains hundreds of tombs. And in several of these tombs, tens of mummies were discovered in perfect condition. They remained untouched and preserved because they were made using the ancient method of cartonnage. The remains are around 2,000 years old. This necropolis is the perfect marriage between Roman and Egyptian aesthetic and culture. It is decorated with common Roman colors and mythology, but also with Egyptian pharaonic shapes, making it one of the most unique necropolises of all of Egypt. The first mummy with gold they unearthed was that of a female, and her height was 1.55 meters, which by today's standards would be quite short. Her face and waistcoat were covered with pure gold. Number 9. The Temple of Bastet. Bastet was a goddess in the Old Kingdom that's often associated with fertility, and she acted as a protective deity. At first, Bastet was depicted as a lioness, but later on, she was represented as a cat. Ancient Egyptians saw cats as sacred creatures. They believed they had a powerful fertility and also a conspicuous behavior during mating season. This temple was one of the main places of worship for the goddess, and according to Greek historian Herodotus, who visited ancient Egypt during the 5th century BC, many other temples at that time were much more grandiose and imposing, but there was none more beautiful than the Temple of Bastet. 2 channels would have surrounded the temple at the time, and it was lined with trees. It was designed this way to allow better views of the city of Bastet. The city actually became the capital of Egypt during the 22nd dynasty, and the temple was extended as a result. But they still kept much of the original materials. Some of them date back to the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, who reigned in 2566 BC. At the temple, they had a yearly festival in honor of the feline deity, where people would engage in drunkenness and ecstatic activities that were thought to please the goddess Bastet. Number 8. Rosetta Stone.
Just let your imagination roam. That's all. Because a lot of y'all like me trying to figure out what were they doing for her entertainment. What did she like to be entertained by? So just let your imagination just run crazy on that.
This may just be the most famous stone in the world. The Rosetta Stone is actually a broken part of a bigger stone slab.
See, look at that. I knew what it was before they said it, bro. I'm learning.
It has a text carved into it in 3 different types of writing and in 3 different languages. The text on the Rosetta Stone is an official message called a decree. And we still have decrees today, by the way. A decree is an official order that has the force of law, and because of it, they had to be placed in every single temple across Egypt. But this stone is not important for the content of the decree, but for the fact that the same message was written in 3 different types of writing, one of them being ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The other 2 are Demotic, which is also in Egyptian scripture, and ancient Greek. When they finally managed to translate it, it actually allowed us to begin learning how to read hieroglyphs, which consequently taught us everything we now know about the Egyptian Empire. Thanks to the Rosetta Stone, we are now able to read the writings in every single temple and papyrus we find, which is very important. Number 7. The Secret of the Sphinx. Hermes Trismegistus was an ancient Egyptian moon god, and he reported on a library of knowledge in his mystical works. He said there was a maze below the paws of the magnificent Sphinx that led to a huge library called the Hall of Records. Legend has it, inside that library was stored all essential knowledge of alchemy, astronomy, mathematics, magic, and medicine. But to this date, nobody has ever been able to find it. Is the Library of Knowledge
Wow. Well, now, this is all, you know what I mean, speculation. But what if that could be something once found that could solve a lot of the issues that we deal with? What if they knew what we were facing and knew how to stop a lot of the things, or had information that could provide us with so much better ways of living or combating certain things like diseases, or you know what I mean? Some things that we haven't tried. Like, that's why I can't be on it. Cause now it'd be my life's mission to find whatever it is down there that maze is saying. Is that like, it would consume me, literally.
a myth or is it reality? We simply don't know. In the modern era, an American faith healer named Edgar Cayce told the prophecy of the library. While in a state of trance, he spoke of the Hall of Records where all the knowledge from ancient civilizations was hidden away. Cayce believed that he was the
We gotta find that library.
reincarnation of a high priest who lived in the lost city of Atlantis, and he claimed to have been at the library in his past life. He wrote that there's a secret passageway that forms part of the right paw of the Sphinx, leading to the underground chamber. But as much effort as people throughout the decades have put into finding it, the library remains hidden. Number 6.
We gotta find it.
Tutankhamun's tomb. In the year 1922, a tomb was discovered in the Valley of the Kings right next to Luxor in Egypt. It was the tomb of King Tut. This discovery was incredibly important because it was the first one that was actually untouched. We mentioned earlier in this video that so many artifacts and historical objects have been lost throughout the millennia because of tomb robbers. The tomb of King Tut was completely untouched. Actually, it hadn't been opened at all since they buried him at the end of the 18th dynasty during the New Kingdom of Egyptian history. The site was discovered by famed archaeologist Howard Carter and his team. Not many people know this, but the man that was funding the search, Lord Carnarvon, started to get frustrated after years of them not finding anything and almost pulled out all funding right before they found King Tut's tomb. How embarrassed would he have been if he actually would have gone through with it? Considering that this tomb is one of the most important discoveries ever, a lot, I reckon. But the story gets very interesting in the sense of the occult as well, because the tomb is believed to have been cursed. And right after they unearthed the king's sarcophagus, most people involved died a terrible, tragic, and inexplicable death.
See, this is what I was talking about earlier when they were opening them tombs. Let's pay attention to the people who open them and see what happens.
Number 5. Lion Cub Mummies. Certainly, there are no prides of lions roaming the sand dunes of Egypt today, but as late as 1000 BC, the king of the jungles was a very normal occurrence on the banks of the River Nile. Actually, some of the big cats even lounged in the Egyptian palaces as domesticated pets for the royal family. Back then, the lion was associated with the sun because of the color of its fur, and therefore it was associated with the pharaoh. So much so that even long after Egypt's climate became drier and the lions migrated south, they were still featured quite prominently in Egyptian culture. Think about the Sphinx, for example, and they even mummified lion cubs from time to time. Well, not many have been found, but researchers have long wondered why that's the case, considering that the Egyptians mummified literally millions of other animals. They recently discovered 5 lion cub mummies at the Babashtian necropolis, which is quite literally a catacomb of cat mummies. They were found with a very large collection of wooden and bronze statues of cats. Experts believe they date back to the 26th dynasty, which was between 664 and 525 BC. Number 4. The Screaming Mummy. The Deir el-Bahari royal cache was discovered in 1881 near Luxor. It was where priests of the 21st and 22nd dynasties used to hide the corpses of royal members from the previous dynasties to keep them from being raided by grave robbers. And in that cache, they found the infamous Screaming Mummy. Recent studies that used CT scans and also DNA analysis by the scientific team of the Egyptian Mummy Project has proved that the mummy was a woman of her 60s and she was laying in the same room as Prince Pentuer. The story of the prince is one of the darkest in Egyptian history, as he actually cold-bloodedly killed his father in a very complex and intricate plot called the harem plot. As a punishment for the parricide he committed, he was forced to take his own life by hanging. Even if he was a member of the royal family, he was considered unclean, so he was further punished by not being mummified. This meant that they were sending him to hell in a way. But the Screaming Mummy was actually very well taken care of. They removed her viscera and inserted very expensive materials like resin and scents into her body. So who could this woman be? She is caged for eternity with a traitor, but she seems to have received a proper burial ritual. It is a mystery. Number 3. The Pyramids of Dashur. Everyone knows about the Great Pyramid of Giza, and that's why the site is constantly packed with tourists and visitors. But the pyramids of Dashur are often overlooked, and quite honestly, they happen to perfectly encapsulate ancient Egypt, and there's usually nobody there. So in my book, that's a win-win situation right there. Dashur is one of the most important necropolises in Memphis, the one in Egypt, not the one in the States, of course, and it's located only about 30 kilometers south of Giza. There, you will find pyramids of the 4th and 12th dynasties, including the ones of King Amenemhat II and King Amenemhat III. Dashur is also the site of the mysterious Black Pyramid and the Red Pyramid. There's even a bent pyramid there. It ended up this way following a mistake by the architect. He was horrified to find that he didn't realize the height would reach 48 meters with an angle of 54 degrees, so he had to quickly change his plans mid-construction, thus resulting in a funny-looking pyramid. Number 2. Strange Egyptian head cones. Have you ever wondered why ancient Egyptians painted men and women with head cones in their artistic depictions? They're everywhere.
Because they thought they were seeing UFOs too. We ain't the only ones.
From papyrus scrolls to coffins, women in particular were always portrayed with the bizarre head cone in images of childbirth. But what does it mean? Well, even though they've found literally millions of people with cones in their heads, no archaeologist has been able to excavate the enigmatic object that would make them appear with a cone head, which leads experts to believe that the mysterious cones were merely a symbolic representation. You know, kind of like the halos on top of baby Jesus and the Virgin Mary, as they are drawn in literally every church in the world. But recently, lo and behold, they actually unearthed a cone from the sand. They found it in the cemetery of Amarna, which is an ancient city that was erected by Pharaoh Akhenaten, who was actually King Tut's father. They found the burial resting place of an adult woman who's believed to have been a member of the more humble population of Amarna, meaning she wasn't part of the elite. And on her head, she had a cone-shaped wax object, just like in the paintings. Number 1. Tomb of King Tut's wife. Did you know that the worldly famous teenager pharaoh Tutankhamun married his half-sister? Yeah, apparently marriage within the same
Unfortunately, yeah, we learned that in that video I checked out.
family was not just a European tradition, they did it in ancient Egypt as well. Famed Egyptologist Howard Carter popped King Tut's tomb open in 1922, and it was one of the most important events in Egypt archaeology of all times because looters had never been able to find this tomb to rob it. Therefore, the site was completely untouched. They even found the pharaoh's golden burial mask, which today is the utmost synonymous with ancient Egypt. And as it seems, they might be getting lucky again because they think they found his wife's tomb in the Valley of the Monkeys. The Valley of the Monkeys is directly adjacent to the Valley of the Kings, which is where King Tut was found. And for decades, archaeologists thought there was a huge possibility that she would have been buried there near her husband. Queen Ankhesenpa'aten was the daughter of Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. She was born in 1350 BC, and she was actually wedded to her own father. Yeah, strange, but she apparently bore him a daughter just before turning 13, and after that, she was wed to her half-brother, King Tut. As you can see, ancient Egypt was a very rich and...
That's just hearing that being said that way. But they didn't see that as crazy. To us, that seems like just insane to even possibly fathom that was taking place. But to them, that was normal. That was what they were supposed to do. It was what, those who had come before them did. So they were, you know what I mean? Who are they to, in their minds, who are they to mess up tradition? But that's just still crazy to hear. You know what I mean? It's crazy to hear. But this is why I always love to check out these type of videos, man, to get that history, just to hear that people was just robbing people's graves. Just out here just robbing people's graves, man. But what do you expect when you knew they were comprised of jewels and other valuables and different things like that? They ain't care about the history. They wanted the values. They wanted the valuables to go make money. So much stuff we could have probably seen, but it's probably been sold off and sold off again. Probably now trying to turn them into NFTs. But let me not even go down that rabbit hole, but y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you think, and stick around and stay tuned. Till next one, I'm gone. Peace.